Welcome back to the From Biology of Stress-Free training series, where in the first video you took the first step in understanding how your unexpressed emotions turned inward have been affecting how you show up confident in the world. It's been so wonderful to read all the comments. Thank you for writing in. And I'm just so inspired that you are really hungry and ready to keep learning how to calm your nervous system and be free of codependency. This is the second video in the series, and whether you are an adult child of an alcoholic or addicted parent, or the survivor of narcissistic abuse, or maybe other emotional trauma, you're in the right place. This is the place to achieve freedom from codependency and end the cycle of self-sabotaging attachment wounds in your life, your relationships, your health, and your money flows. In this video training, I'll be teaching you what ACEs are and how unresolved childhood trauma can be making you sick and holding you back from achieving success, maybe finding the love of your life or healing from a chronic mystery disease. You're also going to be able to take the ACE test to see how high your score is and download your resilience workbook to support you on your healing journey. Information is powerful when we have action steps to take it into, and that's what I want for you. So if you missed the first video in the series, you should go back and check it out, because I covered a lot about unexpressed emotions and the lack of safety to ask and have your needs met in childhood, and how this makes you a lot more prone to heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, and all sorts of mental health issues in adulthood, including aging before your time. Stress is a killer, so we want to learn how to work with it in a healthy way. I shared with you how the one thing science proves is you can't separate emotions from the body, and one thing that most doctors don't do is ask you about your childhood, your feelings, your family dynamics, and all sorts of other things that really are important. They just give you a pill to fit a DSM diagnosis. By now you know I'm Sarah Jane, and 17 years ago I came to this work through my own come to Jesus moment, where I woke up sobbing on the floor of a mental hospital, wondering how I ended up there. And I didn't believe that I would ever get back up again after the end of a very traumatic 15-year relationship with a narcissist. I wish I'd known back then what I'm sharing with you now, in having the support and the tools that perhaps would have prevented me from suffering with chronic anxiety and depression and migraines and bulimia and a lot of bad relationship choices that led to my financial ruin back in 2003. After that dark night of the soul, my wake-up call was huge. I began to learn everything I could about how my unresolved childhood trauma had led me to the point where I almost took my life and died. It's what led me to becoming a nervous system specialist in the first place. I have a lot in common with the thousands of sensitive, highly empathic women that I've had the honor of supporting on their healing journeys over the years. Together we get to the root cause of what is keeping them stuck in the self-protective, or what I call self-sabotaging patterns at the level of their nervous system. A system which is designed to keep you safe and away from pain, into vulnerability. And when we take this bottom-up approach, as well as an integrative top-down methodology, you too can learn how to connect to your true self and reclaim your power and really love who you are. I do this by giving you a framework of exactly what attachment style you developed as a child and the right tools to use at the right time, so that you can repair your brain and reboot your nervous system. And I know you want that, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So today I'm going to show you some of the core steps that I use and teach my private clients to come out of this fight, flight, freeze response and truly trust and love yourself again. To know that you're worthy of love, that you are and always have been enough. You're not alone, and that you can have the peace of mind, abundant energy, more flow, more ease, and above all, a life you love. Seeing my clients return to a fulfilled, happy life, seeing them in that space is the best feeling in the world. And it makes me so happy to see them transform in front of my very eyes. You can have this too. And by now, you should be feeling excited about your future, maybe a little bit more optimistic, knowing that you're not alone and that none of what's happened to you is your fault. These are just deeply rooted, unconscious patterns of avoiding feeling your emotions that were just programmed into you as a child. And while you can't change what happened to you, you can transform through it. Trust me on this one. I know because I've been there. And by understanding that the coping strategies that you set up in childhood have kept you safe, but also left you as an adult unable to step outside of your current level of comfort zone, everything's going to start falling in place. You've already taken a big, brave step forward to creating a fulfilling life where you're going to be excited to grow, attract your soulmate, have financial abundance, and live your best life just being you. Like my client Candace, who when she first came to me was a single mom struggling to support her two teenage children after years of emotional and physical abuse from her ex-narcissistic husband, who she was still paying off a huge amount of his debt and working herself to the point of exhaustion for a narcissistic boss who criticized her and put her down at every turn. Kind of crazy when she was actually saving him millions of dollars every year with her accounting skills. And how did he do it? He kept her in a constant state of fear, threatening her with dismissal, even though she wasn't in fact running his company and getting paid very little to do so. Her body was racked with constant debilitating pain when some days she couldn't even go to work because her fibromyalgia was so bad. When we started working together in our private sessions, she learned how these survival patterns that she created to keep herself safe as a child from a critical narcissistic mother who constantly, you guessed it, put her down and gave her the silent treatment while overindulging her two siblings who could do no wrong, were still playing out in her adult life. Maybe you can relate to that too. Can you start to perhaps see a pattern here of how your childhood may be literally making your body attack itself just like her as an adult because of these layers and layers and layers of unresolved trauma wounds? The good news is slowly but surely the inflammation in Candace's body came down. She began to be able to calm her nervous system and everything started to come back online. Her cells literally started talking to each other rather than fighting against each other. And she started to use the tools daily to come out of this freeze state and feel her emotions again, even though it was painful. It wasn't an easy journey. She had a total knee replacement a few months ago, but she finally began to build up some savings and find the courage and the confidence to resign from her soul-sucking job and kick that narcissist to the curb. She wrote to me the other day and said, "Sarah Jane, I've finally done it. We leave to start a new life in the UK end of July. Even though my family have nothing positive or encouraging to say about my decision, thanks to the work I've done with you, I no longer let them trigger or manipulate me. There's so much freedom there. Thank you for pushing me out of my comfort zone. I know it's taken a while, but I'm finally doing it. I'm excited and happy about my new adventures, and everything is falling into place. You've been instrumental in my healing process, and I feel so empowered now to create a life I love, that I am sharing my story with others who, like me, feel trapped alone and are dying a slow death, wondering if they can change their circumstances." Looking back to where I was just 2 short years ago, It sometimes feels like a dream to see a strong, resilient woman that I love who has beaten the odds and has her power back, staring back at me in the mirror. It's like a dream come true. And I will be eternally grateful to you for showing me what is possible when you have a safe space to rewrite those old stories. I want you to have a success story like that. And for me, it's success stories just like these ones that I receive daily from women just like you who understand impossible challenges and have turned their lives around regardless. They're loving themselves again, and that makes me want to get this information and the tools to use in the right order to as many of you as possible. So, are you ready for today's lesson? Let's dive in. In this video, you're going to learn what adverse childhood experiences are, exactly what abuse looks like, and understand how to validate what you feel so that you can honor your own needs. You see, if you were raised by a dysfunctional person, then you've been taught to think, feel, and behave in ways that do not serve you without even knowing it. They're called blind spots for a reason. So, if you've been taught that what you think and feel is irrelevant, then as an adult, it will be all but impossible not to experience low self-esteem, tremendous self-doubt, shame, and confusion. If you can't value what you think and feel, how then can you ever hope to create abundance and a healthy life experience? You can't, and the truth is, it's not your fault. Please. They found that parents separating or divorced counts as one of the big T's. The other one is physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. The other is physical and emotional neglect, domestic violence, and mental illness in the family. Substance abuse, so addictions or incarceration by a related family member, all became part of the 7 main ACEs. And the ACEs clearly impact our behavior. But it turns out that it's not enough to explain the increased risk of health conditions in later life. For example, those original ACE studies showed that if a person had 7 of those ACEs but didn't smoke or drink, had normal cholesterol, and wasn't overweight, there was still 360% more likely than someone with 0 ACEs to get a heart disease or cancer. So what's going on here? As I mentioned earlier, in the example of that obesity study at Kaiser Permanente, we know that ACEs impact our beliefs, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and that can all lead to destructive health behaviors like not sticking to a weight loss program due to the belief being thin was unsafe. Beliefs, we know, are formed by powerful emotions that have an effect on our biology and directly and indirectly affect our behavior. And the most studied and tested effect on biology and science is probably that placebo effect, because every randomized controlled trial has a control group to rule out the placebo, which is a strong, powerful belief that something will heal us. It usually does, even if it was just a sugar pill. So, when we're exposed to an ACE, much of the time you're unable to process and release the impact of the traumatic event at the time. So what happens? It becomes stored in the unconscious mind and in your body. World-leading experts in trauma recovery, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, discusses this in his book entitled The Body Keeps the Score, Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma. It's a great book and I highly recommend it. What he goes on to mention is that when we're traumatized, the body remembers. Time does not heal, it conceals, and our biography eventually becomes our biology. After an ACE, the traumatized part of the psyche becomes disassociated from us, meaning it becomes unconscious. Often we lose touch with the emotion related to it completely. However, there are parts of us that are angry all the time, crying all the time, fearful all the time, and so on, all from this unresolved trauma. These parts of us can have unconscious beliefs associated with them that may include those feelings of unworthiness, of I'm not worthy of love, I can't have good whole health or abundant energy, I can't have a feeling of well-being. So we feel ashamed and like we deserve to be punished with ill health. I see it all the time in my practice. And while we may have a conscious belief that we can be well and recover from an illness, this can be self-sabotaged by our unconscious belief systems linked to traumas from ACEs. So remember this, emotional trauma has also been found to be inherited epigenetically. So, for example, third-generation children of the survivors of the Holocaust and survivors of the 9/11 attacks have been found to have the same psychological symptoms of trauma as their grandparents. Sometimes it goes back 3 generations, and we work with that as well. So, also, the prenatal period, the time when you're in your mother's womb, is a critical time when trauma experienced by our mothers can be passed on to us as the unborn child. The effect of unresolved emotional trauma from childhood on health across a lifetime, it's possibly the most underexpressed risk factor for all major chronic health conditions in the world today. Dr. Felitti states in that study that no patient can afford to ignore the impact of adverse childhood experiences, or the ACEs as I'll call them from now on their health, and that we have to ensure more and more health practitioners become ACE and trauma informed. The ACE questions can be too superficial to assess for subtle traumas like emotional neglect and other forms of developmental traumas, also known as complex PTSD. We get into that in the Out of the Blue study, but for now just know that as that world-leading expert on trauma, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk addresses in his book, The Body Keeps the Score, you can heal from this. You're going to find a link to the ACE test and the in-depth one, which includes other factors that are not covered in the ACE test, at the bottom of this video. Please let me know in the comments what your score is when you've taken the test. And if you have any questions you may have from the Building Resilience workbook that you can download as well and work through. Here's the thing a lot of you might not know about me. I never really wanted to teach people how to heal from unresolved trauma related issues like insomnia or IBS or anxiety or depression or mystery illnesses like autoimmune diseases or fibromyalgia or cancer, because there was still a lot of stigma and shame associated with this when I started doing this work 17 years ago. And honestly, it takes time. It takes deep work and a deep sense of commitment. And not everybody's brave enough to do this work, but I'm here to give you ongoing support and that safe environment so that you can thrive. I think there are few topics out there, such as inviting someone to confront a possible abusive childhood or a current relationship, that can be as discomforting. So trust me, you're not alone. Lately, it seems to be a very fashionable topic where trauma is a buzzword, which excites me, but it also makes me slightly concerned, as I think that there are a lot of well-meaning people out there who are not skilled or certified enough to work with trauma at the level of the nervous system. So many people are coming to me at the moment hungry for change and unsure where to even begin, that I finally decided to share what up until now you could only receive if you worked with me privately at $300 a session. So if we're going to save our beautiful planet from extinction, we have to work with our own trauma and shadows, which is why I want to make this available to as many people like you as I can. I want to teach this in a way that doesn't further overwhelm your fragile nervous system and really excites you, empowers you to know that you can heal naturally. The point of asking or exploring potential abuse that may have happened in your past, metaphorically, the same point as Neo in the trilogy The Matrix movie, says it's like taking the red pill to wake up to your reality even more, to see things more clearly, and in doing so have more choices about how you want to support yourself as an adult who is no longer a powerless child. To use a trite but apt therapy line, we cannot heal what we don't feel. I know you hear me say it all the time, but truly we cannot feel what we don't or cannot acknowledge happened in our past. The point of asking or exploring whether or not unresolved childhood trauma, some degree of complex PSTD, or the more insidious, chronic, unpredictable, toxic daily stresses where your nervous system was like on high alert every day, day in and day out, because perhaps like me, you had a parent that was an emotionally abusive drunk who constantly criticized the way you chewed your food or body shamed you or just told you over and over again how stupid you were. And so there you were, forever walking on eggshells, holding your breath, sleeping with one eye open, and living in fear of when the other shoe would drop. So you did everything in your power to avoid confrontation, while at the same time just wanted to be validated and loved. So you maybe became the codependent, the overachiever, the good girl, the people pleaser. Whatever it was, you can change. And in video 3, we're going to cover what attachment wounds are, what your attachment style is, so that you can start to understand why you may be unconsciously sabotaging your relationships with your body, with people, with money, and pretty much every relationship that you have. And this is really important because once you identify how you set up those protective patterns, all subconsciously as a child, then you get to intentionally grow yourself up. You get to grow your child parts up like the loving adult perhaps you never had. And because you, the adult, are going to learn how to create secure attachment, you're going to restore your sense of self-worth and rapidly accelerate your healing journey. You're going to love this one. In fact, I think it will be your favorite in the series because I'm going to walk you through how to identify those attachment wounds and those survival patterns so that you can create your own safety anywhere and in any situation. And you're also going to be able to take that attachment quiz. It's going to be really, really great, and I know you're going to love it. You'll also understand why it is impossible to have clear focus and commitment to create the life you want, attract all those beautiful things like a love relationship or financial abundance if you don't feel safe. I'm going to teach you why you may be doing what you're doing, keeping yourself stuck in positions that you don't want, even though you cognitively know better, and get to that place where you have that loving partner that you dream of, instead of attracting the narcissist again and again, or turning down that raise because you're too afraid to ask for what you want, or change your old history with money. Stop abusing yourself. Love yourself more. And to help you begin to make impact with explicit and explicit memories. It's going to give you the opportunity to heal from everything. And in my private practice, I often hear questions and statements, and maybe you're feeling a little bit, you've heard all of this before, and you're a little bit cynical. But so many of my clients go, but he never hit me. My dad never hit me. You know, that's just what my dad did. He criticized me because he told me it was for my own good. Or my mom was never abusive. Yeah, she yelled a lot. And she used to talk about how much I smelt in front of her friends when they came over. And yes, that sucked, but she wasn't abusive. Or maybe you're like my friend Ian, who said, abuse is what happens to those kids who were beaten by their parents. My parents were perfect. And sure, I don't remember all of my childhood, but I don't think I got beaten. So all those other memories couldn't have been abuse, right? I really do think it's important, painful, yes, but important to talk about and to recognize exactly what abuse is. Because Many of us, particularly those of us who grew up in dysfunctional or chaotic family homes, may in fact have a history of abuse but are unwilling or unable to identify it as such. But when we do, when we can accurately confront and validate our personal history, we allow ourselves opportunities for healing as adults that are beyond Western medicine. Today, I want to dispel the myth that there's only one kind of abuse and share information and examples with you about what also counts as child or adult abuse. And I'm doing this in the hopes that you may be able to see and validate yourself and your story more clearly, to use this information to support your own healing journey. Because when we swallow whole the belief that the only kind of child abuse is physical trauma, when we fail to see that what may have happened to ourselves clearly, we deny ourselves that opportunity to heal and grow from it. If you did have a history of childhood abuse, I want you to get curious and clear about how it may still be impacting you today. And then give you choice about how you decide to get yourself support around this so that you can move forward and make a beautiful life for yourself, no matter what your early beginnings held for you. Some examples of non-physical abuse a child might experience is being intentionally abandoned or left in a public or private setting alone so that the parent can make a point. Another one is being yelled at, screamed at, or having derogatory or cruel comments made to or about you, being locked in a room and having food, water, or other basic needs withheld. Being gaslit by a parent, having them deny the child's reality, an experience with the intent of psychologically confusing and undermining the child, being criticized, mocked, belittled, humiliated, and otherwise eroding the child's sense of self-esteem. Another is being given little or no attention, having a child's display of attention go unreturned, or a child being told that they're unwanted or unloved. Being isolated from peers and loved ones, but not allowed to play with or socialize with other children or adults is a big one that I come across often. This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to examples of what can be considered non-physical abuse. So I'm curious to know, and post in the comments below if any of those identified with you. I'm sure that you could generate a half a dozen more examples on your own after listening to some of the examples that I've given. And of course, nothing is ever excluded. While there's no one linear prescribed path from recovering from an abusive childhood, some of the key steps along your journey, which we're going to cover, and which you're already actively doing right here, is to educate yourself. Whether this is through trainings like this one, inquiries, or through professional personal support, you'll likely need to begin learning about what child abuse is. The first step in any healing process is bringing awareness to what is. And you're already doing this. We're in video too. And I find that psychoeducation like this one about childhood abuse can be very deeply illuminating as you begin to make sense of your past and know none of this was your fault. It's just the bad programming of this reality. And now that you know, you can change it. As I said before, in the Out of the Blues program, which I'm going to give you a lot more detail about later on, you're going to confront your personal history of child abuse. And if you don't choose to work with me, then I should really strongly recommend working with a therapist or other trained professional that is trauma-informed as you begin to talk and remember and make sense of your past. A lot of my clients say they don't even remember their childhood, and that's a clear sign that there's some trauma there. Remember too that we have to grieve what you don't receive. And through breath work and this energetic grief clearings that I'm going to give you inside of the Out of the Blues program, you're going to be supported in your grieving process. Inevitably, in the course of educating yourself and confronting your past, you're going to need to grieve what you didn't receive. Much essentially was a chance to truly be a kid. And you have to feel sad for the part that didn't have that. This grieving process may take quite some time. It can at times often feel endless, but it is so valid and necessary to your healing process. We'll also work through the developmental milestones that you may not have achieved as a child. Often for those who experience child abuse, you just didn't fully get the chance to be a child or a teen with your own wants and needs and identity and preferences. Inside the program, you're also going to learn what healthy boundaries are and how to set them with others, because it's critical to recovering from some of that abusive parenting. I also encourage you, as you get stronger and more resilient and confident, to keep seeking out healthier, more functional relationships. At first, it's going to feel hard, if not impossible, to recognize, and you might not trust yourself that you can actually draw those loving kinds of relationships into your life, and that's completely okay. You're going to start with your relationships with me or a trained professional whose job it is to show up in a healthy, functional way for you and allow you to create safety, because I am in a place of safe and secure attachment. Over time, this may influence who you attract into your personal life. We're really going to laser focus your healing and your recovery work on developing a more cohesive and stable sense of self. Remember, for most of you adults, if you were abused as a child, your healing work is going to revolve around developing a more cohesive and stable sense of self, learning to love and value yourself for who you are, and not for who you think you should be to win approval. A poor sense of self can impact every area of your life, as you're starting to see, from your physical and mental health to your relationships, your career advancement, and it certainly impacts your bank account. It's just how it works. How you do anything is how you do everything, and we have to change that at the level of your nervous system. So focusing your work with me or with someone else, when you focus your trust on cultivating and developing that cohesive, stable sense of self, you're going to have wonderful ways to focus in on what you want to achieve. Below, you will find an inquiry sheet as well that you can use to start exploring some of your personal history and your childhood history. So bringing this to a close, there is a reason you're watching this video. You already know that either you're in a narcissistic relationship and you don't know how to leave with your mental health intact, or you've done some work on healing from childhood trauma and codependency, and you just feel like you need a more trauma-informed specialist like me to fast-track your healing and get you out of your own way. And perhaps you are the healer, the yoga teacher, the breathwork facilitator, or you're in the realms of life transformation and you know that you need to step up and do more of your own healing work so that you can help your clients get better results. Whatever reason you're here, I'm just so glad that you're doing this work, you're showing up every day, and life is opening up for you. You've already learned what ACEs are and the effect of unresolved chronic, unpredictable, toxic stresses are having in your adulthood. And you've also dispelled the myth, and a great disservice to you, to consider that the only form of child abuse is physical abuse. We've dispelled that myth also, that with some additional psychoeducation in today's video, I hope that you're not feeling as cynical as you were before. I know that this video training may not have felt very comfortable to you, but I really, really want you to know that I am so proud of you. I want to commend you. If you've made it to the end of this video, and if you already have a really clear idea of what your history of child abuse is, keep going. I know it takes courage and bravery and grit to face your personal history, but you're doing it. You've got this, and I am your biggest supporter. I'm here cheering you on. So I want you to take the ACE test and then post your score in the comment section below to not only celebrate that you survived early trauma, but to celebrate also that you're taking the first big step on your journey back to self-love and acceptance. I want you to really acknowledge how brave you are in being part of this series, and that your comments may be the inspiration for someone else to reclaim their power too. So please keep posting. And of course, if you got value out of this video and found it useful, I would love it if you would click the like button and share it with your friends and loved ones. When you can move into this kind of hard work and you invite the presence of love and compassion to open up to learning about yourself, how you're wired from childhood, how you tick, how your being is going to create that space for you to create safety for your child paths. And you're going to start to develop a loving, secure attachment as the adult if you stay with me over the next few videos. And that higher vibrational state is going to give you access to everything that you want to bring into your life and manifest. It's extremely powerful. And yes, it's going to take practice and commitment. But when you have the accountability and the support for learning to trust and love yourself again, anything is possible. Now that you know why you've been feeling sick and exhausted and trapped in this vicious cycle of abuse, what questions do you have about ACEs or how to build your resilience? Please scroll down and leave a comment for me. And hit that Facebook like button. But most important, leave that comment for me. I've been reading every one that comes in and responding to so many of you, and I would really love to hear more about what you're getting out of this and how I can support you in a deeper way. You've got this, and I will see you in the next video.